Welcome to the OA Light a Candle Meeting podcast. Visit our website at www.oalaig.org, where you'll find several speaker feeds with over 400 speaker files, forms for ordering CDs for these speakers, and a place to donate to keep this special service active. I would now like to introduce our speaker for tonight, Mike.
Thank you. Good evening. I just want to welcome all the newcomers. This is an incredible I'm sorry. What am I? What? Am I supposed to say who I am? Oh, sorry. I'm Mikey. I'm a compulsive overeater and a crazy person. Sorry about that. So just want to again just welcome all the newcomers. This program is an incredible program, and if you just stick with it. It will change every aspect of your life. I came in January of 2008. My current abstinence started at September 11th, 2010. And I have to keep it that way because of September 11th, I can remember it. I came in here. I ended up falling in love with somebody who was in program, started OA a month before I met her, and it's kind of a dicey situation to start a relationship in the first year of recovery, I didn't. So I was with her for about 3 or 4 years before it started to dawn on me that maybe this was something that I needed to explore myself. I really was. I was born into compulsive overeating. My dad is an incredible compulsive overeater and compulsive exerciser. I always tell the story that he was at a buffet once and went up and got 12 plates of food and ended up in the emergency room, and he thought that was funny. Like he took pride in the fact that actually happened, and he almost died. So that's where I came from. And so growing up, I would try to keep up with my compulsive overeating father. My dad would take seconds and thirds and fourths and fifths and sixths, no kidding. And so my way of bonding with him was keeping up with the seconds, thirds, fourths, and fifths. And that, just continued, and I just continued to gain weight, as a elementary school kid and as a high school kid, and this really continued all the way up until I came in the program. And the fact is that I'm an addict all the way around. Like, it's not just a food issue. I have a life issue, honestly. I pretty much am addicted to anything you can think of. Drama, feeling bad for myself. For a long time I was addicted to drugs, and so I can really find an excuse to go into my addict behavior really over everything. But this food problem was this was the thing that was really the thing that would grab hold over and over and over again for me. So, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping all the way around, but so when I was so I started this relationship with somebody who was in OA, and I really didn't understand, and about 3 or 4 years into the relationship, I decided to sort of take a little bit of interest in this, and I basically became a tourist for about a year. Like I would sort of come in and out of the rooms and sit in the back, put my hat down, unlike now, sit in the front and put my hat down, and really would not participate. And one of the most amazing things happened, and again, I feel like being in this program and participating in this program presents miracles. And one of the miracles for me was that somebody that I didn't know in the rooms saw me sort of be this tourist coming in and out of rooms and not really participating, and said, "You," after a meeting, "come over here." After a meeting, and I was like, "Oh, what'd I do? I probably, did something, because I'm always guilty." And she's like, "You come here and you never raise your hand. I want you to make a promise to me that in the next 3 meetings you're going to raise your hand. I don't care if you have nothing to say. Raise your hand." And for whatever reason, I got scared into it, and that's what I did. And I got called on the next 3 meetings. I raised my hand and I got called on. And after raising my hand after a meeting, all of a sudden, people were communicating with me after the meeting. "Hey, man, what you said was something I can relate to, blah, blah, blah." And all of a sudden, I was interacting with other people in this program, and I started to become an active participant in my own recovery for the first time. And so that's all this is to say, in my experience, that it didn't do me a lot of good to not participate and not interact and not become part of the fellowship. That was something that, in the long term, as I've been here since 2008, it's so important, to recognize for myself that I could not do this alone. I needed to be one of many. I needed to be part of a larger group who had the same issues and problems that I had, for me to get through, sometimes a minute, sometimes an hour, sometimes a day. And I couldn't do it alone. And so, after that, things started to become easier for me, and I became more open. I was able to talk to people, and that's finally how I got a sponsor. And it took me a while to figure out what my abstinence was. For those of you who are new, abstinence can seem sort of nebulous, because everybody has their own abstinence, and everybody has to do what's right for them. Your sponsor can direct you, but a lot of times it's not an exact science. So for myself, my biggest issue in terms of eating was eating after 10 p.m. That's when I would go to town. From 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., I would just find myself in the cupboard just going to town and not being able to stop. And so it was that, and it was also the idea that I could not stop after one plate of food. So it was seconds, thirds, and fourths, when clearly I was done after my first plate. So those 2 issues were the cornerstone of my abstinence. So it was no eating after 10 p.m. That's it, and no seconds. I have my one plate of food, and that's it. It becomes a little unclear, when I'm sharing food with people, so I don't love that. But at this point now in my recovery, I'm pretty okay in most food situations now. And just to continue, just to tell you what the rest of my abstinence is, I don't do bread baskets anymore, and no chips at a Mexican restaurant, because those are the 2 other things that just killed me. I mean, I would just go through 3 or 4 bread baskets, and then I'd be ready for dinner. That was great. So then I got the sponsor and started going through the steps. And a funny thing happened. Like I said, I had a life problem, and one of my life problems, one of my many life problems, was the idea that I just knew better than you all the time in every situation. And I was a difficult individual, honestly, especially in my work life. I think it really hurt my work relationships, and people would work with me and then not work with me again. And of course, my opinion was always everybody else's fault. And it really did take me until I was on my 4th step to understand my part in all of that, and that the common denominator in all those relationships was me. And it's oh, okay. and it came down to, my sponsor would always say, humility, to be humble, and that is to be able to be able to be teachable, to remain to be teachable. I'm not saying that correctly, but now it's something that I just didn't really understand. Like I didn't think I could be taught anything more, and the fact of the matter is that just wasn't true. And once I recognized that in this program, I really did approach every situation as a student rather than an angry teacher, because that's what I was. Because I would yell at you like you're an idiot because you don't know what you're talking about, and that is not a great way to interact with the world. And in doing so, I found myself being in situations that were much less tense, much more affable, and I began to understand that in every situation, the thing that I can control are my actions and reactions, and that's something that I didn't really understand before I got into this program. And it was always somebody else's fault in every situation, and through going through the steps and talking to, and the other thing, sorry to sort of be all jumbled about this, but my sponsor was somebody who spoke to me in such gentle terms that it was so infuriating to me, because I spoke to myself in such harsh terms. Like I was always so angry, not only with the world but with myself. I held myself to this ridiculous standard. And so, my sponsor would constantly talk to me and like, hey, it's okay. I came in 2008, but I didn't get my abstinence starting until 2010. So there was a while there where I could not keep more than 60 or 90 days. Mostly it would be 60 days and I would lose it again. I would just eat after 10 or take seconds and not realize it. And he would constantly say to me, it's like, tomorrow's another day, and you can lose your abstinence, but you don't have to lose your program. It didn't mean that I had to leave program, and just give it all away. It's like, okay, you can go to a meeting the next morning and start again. And that was something that didn't really occur to me at the time. I was the kind of person like where if I just didn't get it right, I just would give up. I just needed to just be like the guy. And so, him talking to me in gentle ways actually got me to start talking to myself in gentle ways, in ways where I had compassion for myself. And in having compassion for myself, I started to have compassion for the world. And that began to make all my relationships much richer and, again, much less tense. And it became a really great eye-opening experience for me to approach every situation as somebody in recovery, as somebody who could be teachable, as somebody who had something to learn, as somebody who was, one of God's children and was one of many. And that really impacted every aspect of my life, particularly with my relationship with who became my wife. And this program, really gave me the ability to be in a long-term relationship with with all the highs and all the lows, and gave me the ability to become a father in this program. It's something that those were two things I wasn't really ever sure was going to happen for me. I met my wife when I was 39, so I sort of thought I was going to be like this kind of swinging bachelor for the rest of my life, but the last year up to that, I think that started to become a little old and tired, and really expensive too. No, but I really didn't think that I had the capacity to be in a really strong, long-term relationship, because honestly, like, I didn't like myself very much. Like, I really felt like if somebody got close to me and really found out who I really was, like, they would run for the hills, because I lived in a lot of self-loathing. I lived in fear. I lived in superiority, and I also lived in, I'm the biggest, piece of duty on earth. So, this program sort of leveled that out, and I think that so that kind of brings me up to today, and I think one of the things in thinking about what I was going to talk about today, I really wanted to talk about keeping program when you're in adversity, and the adversity that I'm facing today, they're both small and large. There's the miracle that I still have my abstinence today, because I feel like there's been a lot of challenges to my program and to my abstinence over the last 3 years. But especially the adversity of having a child, having a small baby, and trying to fit in my program to having, trying to have a career, and trying to keep my marriage alive, and trying to raise a child. And the fact of the matter is that my program has not been as strong as it was before. And how do I keep my abstinence in that? Now, on top of all this, I've had some incredible work challenges on both sides of the spectrum. I'm in an industry that's very volatile, and I found myself being unemployed for 1.5 years, and I got 3 jobs at once. And so I was unbelievably busy. And then I also had the challenge of I have this incredible challenge in my family, that my sister has MS, and not only does she has 2 small children, and her husband decided to divorce her. And so there's just the 2 of us, and my parents are, they're 75, so, and she lives 3,000 miles away. So, I have to say that it's just a 15-minute phone call with my sister, who's, she has a very progressive form of it, and she's in a wheelchair. She can't see, she can't use her hands, she can't go to the bathroom by herself, and she's only 43. Just a 15-minute phone call, honestly, makes me want to eat a donut. It just does. It's like I get off the phone, it's like I need a bagel, a donut, or a croissant. Those are my 3 things. It's like that's the axis of evil, people. Not Iran. Yeah, that's tough for me. And so, and how do I keep my abstinence, in the face of these challenges? And, when it's not, before I had my son, I was probably going to a minimum of 5 meetings a week, and mostly going to 8 meetings a week. There were a lot of days where I was going to 2 a day, and that's just, it's just a beautiful feeling. For me, there's just nothing better than being in a room full of other people like myself. and it's like there's this magical thing that happens, no matter what I was feeling, no matter what I'm feeling, no matter how down I am, no matter how depressed I am, and whether or not I get to share or not, I come out, if I go to a meeting, everything changes. The meeting ends, and I'm on a completely different emotional playing field. I'm on a completely different spiritual playing field. And there's just some magic about being in a room and talking the steps and hearing other people share and recognizing, the truth that we all share. And for me, it just lifts my spirit, and it's enough to mostly carry me, for the next 24 hours. And so that became a real challenge. And so, there were other tools that I had to use. And if I couldn't get to a meeting, then it was really important to use the other tools of the program. And that's the reading, that's praying, that's meditation, and that's really getting into contact with other people in the program. And mostly for me, that's texting. And that's just just even like a small text with somebody else in the program was mostly enough to just carry me through. And just for anybody out there who's dealing with some adversity in getting to meetings and feeling sort of isolated, there are other things that you can do. And the idea for myself, getting in touch with my higher power, if nothing else, that can put me in a whole different space. It reminds me that I am actually and absolutely never alone in this program and in this life. Because I think at the end of the day, that's one of the most important things for me, is to recognize that I'm not alone, and that I have fellows, and that I have other people, and that I have my higher power, and I have God here to protect me from myself. Because really, I need protection from myself. I guess just to sort of wrap this all up, I'm very, very fortunate that I've always been a very spiritual person. I've always believed in a higher power, and always felt like I've had a lot of miracles in my life, even before I came in the program. But for me, finding this program at a time when I was really, really devastated emotionally and spiritually, was maybe the biggest miracle of all, honestly. And the thing that it's really taught me is that whenever something happens that I think is just awful and oh woe is me, it has taught me that, oh my gosh, this is exactly God's will. This is exactly what's supposed to happen at this time, because there's going to be something else that's going to come in my path. And so it happened for a reason. And that was something that I think I never understood before coming into this program. And I always took everything so personally. If somebody said something to me, it was just so personal. If something bad happened to me, it was so personal. But the fact of the matter is that it's God's will. It's God's will. And, when somebody says something bad to me now, my first thought is they might be having a bad day. They might be having a bad day, and it's not personal. Look, I'm not perfect, and thank God I'm not, because perfection is the enemy of humanity. Because at the end of the day, right, if you're perfect, you have nowhere to grow or change and strive for, and you just might as well die. And so, it's just been a real journey for me, and it continues to be a real journey for me, to recognize every little miracle along the way, and to really, live the principles and the steps and the traditions of this program. And there are some days where I just think that, that I can't do it. And the thing is I have to do it. And whenever I'm going into the negative space, that's my disease talking. And as my sponsor always likes to say, in every situation, where's God? Where's God in this situation? And that's what I try to do. I try to find where's the God in every situation. And when I do that, I'm turning to the light. I'm turning towards the will of God. And I think that's a much better place to be than in the axis of evil. Because, you know, the fact of the matter is like when I go there, it makes me feel better in that moment. But then when I'm done, I hate myself, and now I have another problem. And now I'm able to kind of take a step back, and you know, the biggest thing you know, for me that I've learned, on top of all the other biggest things that I've learned, you know, is to take that God pause. To take that God pause before I'm going to like do something that might not be the best idea for somebody like me. And I'm able to take that pause, and whether that be, you know, thank God that I have a spouse that's in program and talk to her, or text another fellow, or call another fellow, or go to the big book, or go to my higher power. But it really is a blessing, and I think that is all I have to say tonight. Yeah. So thank you so much. My experience with step 9. Well, I have a weird experience with step 9 because my sponsor had me do step 8 and step 9 at the same time, which I thought was but that's how his sponsor took him through it. And so I found myself I actually found myself feeling that I wasn't ready on some level to make some of the amends that I was making, because like I felt like I wasn't doing it at the same time. That I was doing it at the same time. So it was a little uncomfortable for me, I would say. But I did speak to sort of the main people, and the main people for me were dead. Actually, and so I had to write letters. I had to write letters to those people, and it was very painful. And to the ones that weren't dead, I had hard conversations, and they were never as hard as they were in my mind, honestly, because, you know, the build-up is always so much worse than the actual reality always is. But personally, I would recommend like not doing it at the same time. I feel like there's something off about that. I think there are steps in order, you know, for a reason. So I don't know. I hope that answers the question. But I think my main point is like just dive in. I think, you know, like it's just never as bad as you think it's going to be. Like the build-up is like way worse than the actual reality. Anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry. How I use the steps and traditions in my relationship. I think, you know, one of the biggest things that I heard in these rooms is you bring the problems to the group and the solutions to your house. And that was so helpful. You know, I think that combined with the idea that I don't have to be right, because I always had to be right, but I'm very amenable now to like what my part is in a fight, and I'm much quicker now to own up to my part and to really listen to the other person and really kind of take in. And again, I think it really does come back to being humble and being teachable and just know that I don't know everything. And also, you know, if God is everything or God is nothing, to know that it will work itself out. You know, I think one of the great things in my relationship, you know, is that I think we both don't hold on too tightly, because I think we believe that whatever God's will is God's will. And, you know, there was a time in my life, like, if I didn't have something, like, I was going to die. Well, no, you know, you're not going to die. Like, it's going to be okay. And I think the more that you can turn it over and really give yourself over to a higher power and to know that God's will is God's will, things seem just a little less hard, I think. So, thank you very much.